Hello everybody. This week's episode we have Andy Wilson come to speak to me, who is a facilitator for Andy's Man Club. Andy's Man Club is a set of talking groups for men because they've either been through a storm, they're going through a storm, or there is a storm brewing in their lives. Andy talks really eloquently about mental health, why it's important and why it's really important that people keep talking to each other. He really wanted me to make sure that everybody knows that the groups are open every Monday from 7 o'clock, excluding bank holidays. There'll be lots of links in the podcast notes so that you can click through and get involved. I think you'll really enjoy this episode, and I think Andy was a great guest. See what you think. On this episode of the Coronavirus Extraordinary Ones of Light on Leeds, I have Andy Wilson, who's connected to speak to me. Hello, Andy.
Hi, are you all right?
I'm all right, thank you. Thank you for coming along to talk to me.
No worries. Cheers. Thank you very much for having me on.
No problem. Andy, you are a facilitator at Andy's Man Club. Can you tell everybody what is Andy's Man Club?
So, Andy's Man Club is a safe space for men over 18 to go and talk if they're having any difficulties or issues with anything that's sort of going through in their life. If they're going through a storm, been through one, they're struggling to get over, or things are happening in their life that they're struggling to deal with. Basically, peer-to-peer support group, no professionals. Just turn up on the night, and basically it's lads that are running the groups that have sort of been through things in their own life that just want to help and give back. And so the group was started by Luke Ambler and Elaine Roberts, who are the brother-in-law and mother of Andy Roberts. Andy was just an ordinary 23-year-old lad, sort of no signs or symptoms of depression or anything like that. And one day he went out and sadly took his own life. Luke's family decided to set up Andy's Man Club with a view to helping stop families with the pain that they still go through today and reducing the number of suicides that are happening in men, because it's a big problem within this country. Men still feel like it's not okay to talk, so they released Andy's Man Club with the sort of hashtag It's Okay to Talk. There's now coming up on Monday, I believe it's the 7th, this Monday coming up. It's the 50th groups are opening, so the 49th and 50th groups are opening. I facilitate the Leeds group, which is held in 2 locations in the city centre, just outside the city centre of Leeds. That's just a brief overview of the groups, really. But it's they're a good thing. We've been running in Leeds for 3 years now. We get men coming back each week. We get new men coming each week. Wide range of issues, backgrounds, that sort of thing. I always say that mental health doesn't discriminate. It can impact anybody, and we're just there if people want to come along and talk and get things off the chest.
And how did you get involved in it, Andy?
Yeah, so basically, throughout my 20s, I've always struggled with my mental health. For the majority of as well, it was in silence, probably 6-7 years. I didn't really tell anybody what was going on in my head. I had days where I woke up, I didn't want to be here, and there was no reason for it neither. Still to this day, I always think why when I have my bad days, but there's no reason for it. I was just in a really, really bad place, but good friends, good family, good job, and I just felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about it. It was almost like that I was doing the man thing of just being quiet and just getting on with it, going out on a weekend, playing football, going to football, going to watch Leeds, that sort of stuff, and just basically just keeping my head focused on hoping that one day I might feel a little bit better. And so the pass, and I had a couple of bad bouts of it during my 20s, and then 4.5 years ago now, at that Christmas period, I just signed for my house in the summer, moved into my house in the November, and I just took a really, really bad turn. Didn't want to be here, and I was actively looking for a way out of it. And yeah, I was in a pretty bad place. My parents, friends started to sort of find out a little bit more about it. Then I started to open up a little bit more about it. Thankfully I did, because it's the best thing that I ever did, really, telling people it's not just I'm having a bad day or whatever. It's I can just talk to people about it now and say, look, I'm not feeling too clever at the minute, and that in itself, just by saying that to somebody, makes you realise that you're not alone with it. My dad told
Mm-hmm.
me about the group in the just after the Christmas period. I was I was probably sort of still in the midst of it really in my head, and I thought I don't even really talk to my family and friends about it. Why would I go talk to a group of random people that I don't know about it? Um,
Yeah.
and then in the March time, I thought to myself, well, if you keep doing the same things over and over again, you're going to get the same result. It'll never change. You'll just go in these cycles and things like that. So why don't you try it? Because if you try it, it might help you. Um, and we went across the group in Halifax, and honestly, it was the single most um, beneficial thing that I've ever done for my own mental health. I walked in, we walked in, we drove over, sat at the other side of the car park, and looked at each other, and then suddenly there were a knock at the car window, and it was Ollie Vixie, who works for the club now. He was one of the
Mm-hmm.
facilitators at Halifax group at the time, and he said, "Oh, yeah, for Andy's man club." I just remember at that moment thinking, "Well, yeah, you're going in now. That's it." And yeah, so
Yeah.
we went in, and I was actually feeling a little bit better when I went. To be honest, I wasn't. I sort of felt like I was coming out of it, which for me probably felt like the best circumstance for me. I mean, we see a lot of lads who turn up who be going through it. There might be something they're worried about. There might be something that they've been through, and that for me, I like I say, I said a few things on the first session, but I listened and I met lads that first night who are still my friends today. Like I just formed a bond with people that I didn't feel like I could talk to other people that knew me about. And
Yeah.
that's what's amazing about it. It's just lads that have been to the group before, been in a similar situation that you've been in, um, and yeah, just helping you cope. Because I always think that there's no sort of I didn't go to the group thinking I'm never going to struggle again. I went with a view to this might be something that I can just talk about, and if I do need to talk to somebody, they might understand it a little bit more. And then go into that,
Yeah.
my friends, family, that sort of thing, massive supporters of the group, and things like that now. And yeah, it's just a brilliant thing. It did really sort of change my life.
Do you think that part of the thing is when you're feeling bad with your mental health? Do you think sometimes you can get sort of locked in your own brain and you assume that other people have never felt like you do and that there's something sort of strange about you? Do you think that's one of the reasons people are reluctant to talk about it at
Yeah,
first?
definitely. That's something that I was very much in the mindset of. I was just sort of like mid-20s. I thought to myself, well, you got you got world at your feet a little bit, and like say, good job, things like that, and then just like, why me? Why do I feel like this? And you're like, you don't want. I didn't want to burden people around me with it. What I were going through
Yeah.
because, like I say, and people do care, and people do support you, and people do want to help, and that's the biggest thing that I will say to people now. If you are struggling, like say if somebody's listening to this and they're struggling, or know somebody that's struggling, people do care. And there are groups out there such as Andy's Man Club. Like I said, there's 50 all across the country now, and one online as well. So there are places that men can go to talk.
Do you have any thoughts on why it's more difficult for men?
Um, I'm for me personally, it's like you want to be that strong person, don't you? You don't want to sort of burden or feel. I felt embarrassed, mate, because there was like
Mm.
no reason why I felt like I did. It was like really supportive family and things like that, great group of mates and supportive colleagues and things, and yeah, I just felt embarrassed, really. I was like, why?
Yeah.
And so I just used to like, I'd go out on a weekend, and I remember going to watch like there's certain sporting events and things like that that always stick in my head. Like when I was struggling, and I'd be sat there, and I always remember like when sort of those highlights of of these big events happen and the show on TV, like sporting events. I always think, right, I sat in pub that night, and I walked home and thought, I don't know how long I'm going to be here for, and stuff like that, and yeah,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
and things like that, and I just basically, it was a good act that I put on for quite a while, to be honest.
Yeah, and I imagine when you go somewhere like Andy's Man Club and you finally start talking to and listening to other people's stories, you realise that you're not by yourself. And I can totally get what you mean about, like you saying, it's not like anything particularly traumatic happened to you, or you were looking at your life and thinking, well, there's no reason for feeling like this. That's the thing with mental health, isn't it? There is no rhyme or reason
Yeah,
necessarily.
it can literally happen to everybody. Like I said, I remember signing for my house, and I got the phone call. I was at Leeds Festival at the time, and I remember getting the phone call, being told I could move in the November time, and thinking that year in November, and that's one of the first things that went through my head, and I think,
I'm sorry, you're just breaking up a little bit there,
hey, can
Andy.
you still hear me?
I can
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I remember thinking, looking back now, and thinking that's quite a scary thought, that I probably made the biggest move of my life in the midst
Right.
of feeling like I did. So yeah, there's no
Yeah.
rhyme or reason to it. Like I say, everything at that time should have been perfect, but it was
Yeah.
honestly anything but.
And do you think when you said about the Christmas period where you were feeling
Yeah.
particularly bad, what was it that prompted you to speak to your family, because you said you'd kept it hidden for such a long time? Was it because you were worried about how bad you
Yeah, a
felt?
little bit like that. And like I say as well, family and friends were sort of asking, "Are you okay?" and that side of things, and then things were just sort of spiraling. So it was almost like they're going to find out one way or another here. If if I don't talk about it, this could get a lot worse. So I sort of felt as though there were certain moments and times when I had to talk about it, and thankfully I did, because I don't know what my life would have been like now if I hadn't have done so, or if I'd have still
Yeah.
been here. So, but thankfully I am.
And so you started going along to Andy's Man Club, and you found that very
Yeah.
helpful. At what point did you become more than sort of like a service user? You became a facilitator. When did that happen?
Well, but I still basically all the facilitators still use the groups, that sort of thing. But we were driving over to Halifax to one of the groups, and me and my dad had a conversation about services in Leeds and what was available to men in Leeds. And between us, we couldn't think of anything. Because Andy's man club.
You've just gone off a little bit
Right,
again there,
can you hear me
Andy.
now?
Are you back?
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you back? Yeah.
And Andy's Man Club, to be honest, was the first service that I'd heard of, for men, specifically for men. And so we were driving
Yeah.
back. I think it was like the third or fourth time we'd been, and we were like, what do we do about one in Leeds?" So we spoke to Luke, who founded the groups, and asked about one in Leeds, and then those who were sort of involved working for the club at the time, they helped us sort of get a venue in Leeds to get it going, and we opened up in February, just gone 3 years ago. It was at the Leeds College building, but we're not there at the moment because of the sort of pandemic that's going on. But we are at Milford Sports Club, just off Kirkstall Road. That's the West Leeds
Yeah.
venue, and the East Leeds venue is at East Leeds Rugby Club, at the east side of the city. So we've got two venues at the moment. No doubt there will. Oh well, I'm hoping that there will be more in the future, across the city, more venues. We meet every single Monday, apart from bank holidays, between 7 and 9 p.m. No referrals, no nothing. With, like say, you can just turn up. All the information for the groups is on the website. If you are listening to this and you do want to go along to a group,
Yeah, well, I'll make sure
yeah.
I put all the links in the podcast notes, of course, for anybody who needs it. And so that did that make you feel quite proud that you were able to bring Andy's Man Club to Leeds and help people in your own
Yeah, I
city?
think that yeah, definitely. It's always something that, I mean, I live just outside of Leeds now, but I was born in Leeds, and I'm a Leeds fan, and I just love the place, mate. And yeah, it almost felt like when we were starting it that we knew that something that men in Leeds needed something like this. And I think the most we had before the pandemic was 90 at a group. Well, so
Wow.
and those sort of numbers, it just shows you how there is a need. There is a need for it, and yeah, we just keep banging the drum and saying it is okay to talk, and if you are struggling, do open up.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you cope during the pandemic? How have you, when everything was sort of locked down and you couldn't meet in person, how have you coped with that?
It's the way I'll describe it for me, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. But I've had to I've had to sort of break it down into different sort of stages. Some days I think, oh, it's great, is it? Like not having to go out, not having to see anybody, that sort of thing.
You've just gone off a little bit
Yeah,
there
I was
again.
saying that some days I think, oh, it's great, like, and just sort of stay in house and things like that, and then sort of get into that mindset where I'm like, no, this is not good for me. This sort of staying in house. So I set myself little challenges during it all. So maybe like read so many books, or I got myself a spin bike. And some weights at home and that sort of thing, and I rearranged things in the house, and basically there's a record shop near me as well. Started buying a load of vinyl because he was selling them online. Started buying a load of vinyls and stuff like that, and just sort of doing things different. Because a lot of my coping things were outside, were like playing football, going to Leeds games, going to gigs, going to festivals, and suddenly that just gets removed, and you're like, well, how do I cope now? What do I do? What do I do on those
Yeah.
days when I don't feel? And I think that, from my personal opinion, I think during sort of 12 months, it's like I live on my own, so it's I think that sometimes people there's sort of almost this feeling that, oh yeah, all you're doing is staying inside. Well, you don't know what goes on for people at home sometimes and stuff like that, and struggles people might have. And I know from my personal point of view, coming, I'd go for a walk when we're allowed to do the one walk a day, or whatever it was right at the start. I go for a walk and come back
Yeah.
and shut down and be like, is that it? Is that my day now? I've worked because I've
Yeah.
been fortunate enough to work from home, which has been great. And
You've just gone off a little
yeah,
bit there.
yeah, no, sorry, I've been fortunate enough to work from home. So I've been sort of working from home, but then I'd go for a walk and my daily exercise back in the first lockdown. You come back and you'd be like, is that it now? Is that your day? And that were quite a worrying thought for me. It was
Yeah.
like, so I just work, walk, sleep, repeat. And that
Mm.
frightened me. That frightened me. Did that last year. But
Yeah.
like I say, I do do a like I say, I did a lot of talking to lads, and the groups went online and stuff like that, and I used the group online, and the online group that they set up during the pandemic still runs now. So that's something massive that's come out of this. So there's the 50
Mm.
groups that meet in person, but there's also one group that's online now. So if somebody's not close to a venue, they can go. But there's groups opening all the time at the moment, and they're being put on the Facebook page and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it has been a bit of a roller coaster for me this last 12 months. A lot of positives. If you'd have said to me 12 months ago, this is what you'll feel like in 12 months from now, I'd have probably said you're lying, because I'm in actually quite a really good
Yeah.
place at the moment. So
Good. I'm glad
yeah,
to hear that.
yeah, and when I do have them days, it's like I've now got different. I've started running, things like that, eating better, exercising more. I'll just get on spin bike at home or treadmill at home and stuff like that, and just do a bit of exercise, and I know that instantly makes me feel better. So this
Oh, that's
there's like that
great.
side of it now. Where it's like, yeah, it's been a terrible year for many, and like mental health, my mental health has been affected at times, but I've got even more coping mechanisms now when the world goes back to normal, whatever normal will
Yeah,
be.
exactly. Yeah, whenever it
Yeah,
happens. Um, and so do you think that it seems to me like in the last, I don't know, maybe 8 years or so, conversations about mental health have been more out in the open, and it seems that especially through football and Harry and William talking about men's mental health, do you feel like it is coming a little bit more out into the open
yeah,
now?
definitely. I think that, like you were saying about Harry and William and that and those sorts of things, and football clubs, we've done events with Leeds United, where the players have worn Andy's Man Club shirts, and things like that. And it is, and sports people are coming out and talking about it now. Which, if you think, like I say, of 7, 8 years ago, probably even just less than that. People weren't really talking about it, were they? Especially in
Yeah.
those sort of environments where it's like, say, you go and like, sort of don't matter how you feel. It's just like, right, I'm there to play football or whatever. And now, like, when I see my mates, like, oh, how are you doing? Like, how you doing? You doing all right? How are you coping during all this that's going on and things? And actually asking questions like that, and people in the public eye talking about things like that has then in turn made it, I don't know about easier, but sort of people feel as though they can open up and talk a little bit more about it. And like I say, when I go and meet my friends and stuff like that, we will ask each other, how you doing? Not just what do you want to drink, sort of thing. Like, sort of
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That's the starting point for a conversation. Is that now, rather than, can you, what do you want? What do you want to drink? So yeah, I mean, obviously we
Yeah.
do ask that, but yeah,
Yeah. I kind of feel like during COVID as well, I feel like I live by myself as well, and I feel like my friends and family, everybody's checking each other
yeah,
more.
definitely. I think that's been key from all this. Like I say, I mean, I remember thinking in summer last year, like, I can't go on any more walks. I'm fed up of walking. Like, I'm fed up of walking with people as well. And then, and like I say, and like just checking in. I'm close to my family anyway, and we've always sort of checked in on each other, but more so than ever now. And like I say, checking in on your mates and stuff like that, because like I say, you don't know what people are going through in normal times. Never mind during all this,
Mm.
it can be harder. It can be harder, like I say, over the last, especially over like the Christmas period and stuff like that, when the lockdowns were coming around again, and that side of things. It can be difficult for people.
Definitely. I mean, I know from personal experience the amount of friends, colleagues, people that you know, and people who know the people. It just sometimes seems like there's an awful lot going on for a lot of people, and this sort of enforced isolation and making everybody go out of their own routine. And like you said, in some ways you're lucky to work from home, but in other ways it brings its own stresses, and you can feel more kind of isolated because of it.
Yeah, and you can sort of, like, at times as well, because like the firm I work for are brilliant. Like, they do lots of things with mental health and stuff like that. Anyway, we've got like wellbeing ambassadors, that side of things at work. And I remember when I first started, I used to do a couple of days a week from home anyway. But when it went to 5 days, you just sort of like, I felt like I was over analysing everything that I was doing. And I was like,
Yeah.
right, you need to do this today and you need to do that. And if you don't do that, it's a failure. It's a failed day. And then you're thinking it back in your head, you're like, oh, what's going on with all this? When are we going to be able to go out again? When am I going to be able to go and sit in my mum's house or my nan's house, and that side of things?
Yeah.
And all that sort of doing, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm at home, but this needs doing, that needs doing round house. And then all of a sudden your head's just clouded with all this stuff that normally it wouldn't even bother me, stuff like that, like things around the house and things. I just do it when I've got time. But
Yeah.
it suddenly became like a really important thing to me. And like I say, it's just yeah, no, it has been very strange.
Yeah, very odd. And then I think about, I've got friends who work in
Yeah,
supermarkets and things like that, and they're having to work as normal and deal with people who are stressed because of everything that's going on, and masks and distancing and things like that.
yeah,
I think that after this, I mean, whenever it actually ends, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of fallout for a lot of people for a lot of different
yeah. It's
reasons.
like, I've had a couple of conversations with people recently what about when things go back to normal, and I think for people that have struggled mentally during this time, or even people that haven't, I almost sort of get the impression that when things go back to normal, people are just going to be like, "Oh, right, we'll just go and do whatever again." I think there's going to be a knock-on effect from this, in terms of, like, even things like, say, meetings at work, right, and stuff like that. I've been working from home for a year or so, and
Hmm.
and then suddenly going into a meeting with 50 people when the world's normal, and you sat there in a room and you're like, that, I think that side
Yeah.
of things, and I think there'll be a mental knock-on effect from that, me, and like, just not used to being around people. And I
100%,
think
yeah.
there's and
I was
I think there's a
working,
bit of a naivety with that the what did the government just think? Oh yeah, cool, click and things will go back to normal. Everybody will be like, "Hey, it's back to normal again," sort of thing.
yeah.
It's a strange thing to think about, and it's something that because I always in my head, the way I've dealt with things, I always think about potentially what's the worst thing that could happen when like, and I used to be like very worst case scenario, and it came back last year quite a bit during all this, and that's what I thought like. Well, what if when things go back to normal and I don't like being around people and stuff like that, which has never been me really. And it started to cross
Mm,
my mind that side of things mentally. So yeah,
yeah.
but I am looking forward to things
Well,
going back to normal. So,
yeah, I am, but I'm the same as you. I think, I've worked at home all this time, and then there was just one day in January I had to go in to help out with some exams. And these are all colleagues who I've known for years and years, but I didn't think I would feel like this, but I felt stressed about getting on the bus. I felt stressed about being in a room with people and just having a conversation, which is not the kind of person I normally
yeah,
am.
no, I can relate to that. Like I said, I think when shops and things like that reopen, like, right, I'm gonna go.
You've just gone off a little bit there.
Right, can you hear me?
I can
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
you now, yeah.
No, like I say, when shops and things like that are opened and restaurants and things, and you wanna go out and you wanna sort of see people, don't you, that you might not have seen in a while, and then you think to yourself, "Oh, this is a bit strange, is this?" Like you're not sort of
Yeah.
like you're not used to it, so it's yeah, no, I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's all a mental
Yeah,
strain, isn't it? So, Andy, I know you said that at the moment you are living just outside of Leeds, but have you always sort of been around the Leeds area?
I'm from Garforth originally. I live
Yeah.
in Castleford now, so it's not too far up the road from Garforth. So I went to I went to uni in Sheffield and then went to Birmingham for a year, but I came back because I I wanted to be back in Leeds really. So
Yeah, who can
yeah,
blame you? So you're definitely qualified to answer the three questions that I always ask
yeah.
guests. The first one being, what would you say is great about the city of Leeds?
The people and there's the football team as well. The
Of
football
course.
team's always been a massive part of my life. I've been a season ticket holder for a long while. I went to the game the other week when you could have 8,000 there. I was fortunate enough to get a ticket for that, and I just felt like normal again going there. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's got to be the football team and the people for me.
And what a great year for you as a football
Yeah,
supporter.
definitely. It was a strange year because, like I say, thankfully the pubs were open when Leeds got promoted, so we managed to watch a couple of the last few games sort of in pubs and stuff. But yeah, it would have been nice to be there. But I think over the bigger picture, you think, well, we're in the Premiership now, and we've got a Premiership football team for another year, and hopefully long may it continue as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. And if you had to choose something that you think is not so great about the city, what would you choose?
The traffic. Sometimes, yeah, yeah, definitely the traffic when you're driving across the
Yeah,
centre. And to be honest, I did
yeah.
think about this question as well before, and there's not much I don't like about Leeds. So
I think for me the one thing that I'd always say is the only thing, which is obviously not its fault, is that it's just not close enough to the seaside. But
yeah,
that's about it for
yeah,
me.
there is that as well. Yeah, but I used to think that the nightlife wasn't that good, but I think it's great now. Like I think a lot more like different bars
Yeah, I
and
think
stuff
I think it's
open.
definitely improved. Yeah,
Whereas before it just used to be like standard pubs.
we've gone off a little bit
Yeah, it
there.
just used to be like standard pubs, standard nightclubs, that sort of thing. But there's loads of like different things, and you know, think about the stuff that they do open like down south and things like in other areas like Junkyard Golf and those sort of places. And now we're getting those sort of bars in Leeds, and it's good again. So we can. There's just on our doorstep, aren't there?
Yeah, yeah, that is good. And if somebody had lived in Leeds for a long time and asked you to tell them about a hidden gem that they might never have heard of, what would you choose?
I'm going to tie this back into this conversation that we've been having because the amount of times that I hear, oh, I didn't know there were a group in Leeds. Um, so I'm going to tie it back to Andy's Man Club because,
Yeah,
like you said, people are aware of the group in Leeds, but we're still here. I didn't know that there was a group there, so I think every single bloke that comes to the club and wants to keep coming back to the club will say the same thing. We need to make as many people aware of the group as possible and keep banging that drum. So yeah, I would say that that's a hidden gem for anybody that is struggling out there.
Yeah, definitely. And what will you be doing today with the rest of your day, Andy?
For the rest of today, I'm actually going to a friend of mine's DJing in a pub near mine, the Doghouse. So he's DJing down there, funk and soul night. So I'm going down there. But other than that, not much else, I don't think.
Well, a funk and soul night sounds absolutely fabulous for a Friday
Yeah,
night.
just going down there for a bit. So sit at tables down there, won't be able to dance or anything. So it's but no, it'll be
Just tapping feet.
yeah. No, it should be good. It's like you say, it's nice to get back to a little bit of normality with things like that and socialising in that sense.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Well, thank you so very much for coming along and telling me your story and about Andy's Man Club. I'll make sure that I put lots of links in the podcast notes so that people can get in touch and get involved themselves.
Yeah, and no, thank you very much for having us on and letting us talk about the group.
Absolutely no problem.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
cheers, thank you.
Fabulous to chat to Andy Wilson from Andy's Man Club. He wanted me to point out that Andy's Man Club is open every Monday from 7 till 9, but not bank holidays. I will put lots of links in the podcast notes so that if you feel like you'd like to get involved or go along and visit them, you can. I get to choose how my podcast runs, and normally this would be a Leeds-based band or musician that the guest chose, but Andy chose to feature the song Concrete by the band called Rosadocs. The Rosadocs are a 4-piece indie band and they're from Sheffield, which is obviously not Leeds, but you know, I get to make my own rules. It's just the way it works. Andy had actually seen them perform the Friday before we recorded this podcast. He loved the song. He approached the band, and thanks to them, they let us use it. So thank you, the Rosadocs. It's a great song. It's called Concrete, and Andy said he finds it a really uplifting song, and I'm sure you will too. Look after each other, Leeds, and look after yourself, and I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
What's happening in this great city? We'll tell you. Wait a minute. Or a guided misdeed, and since the
Jobs, 2 cars, and 15 years. I'm wondering if you still care. Had another night till we got found, and when you moved away, it didn't seem fair.